Alright, it looks like the stream is taking. It's gonna stick. I never can be too sure when I first start Twitch and OBS if it's gonna stick or not. This time it worked. First try. Very good. Canucles, no, you're not late. You're quite early. This is me pre-streaming. This is me making sure I can get it started. I started 5 minutes early, as I typically do. And you're here sooner than people usually are. So well done. Hold on, I'm just putting up a tweet to let everyone know that the stream is live. There we go. All right. Let me hang out right here and launch 4coder. All right. We need colors, code. Let me get colors.cpp. Yep. App color. I'm gonna need regen. All right. So that's pretty much everything I need to work on this. Canucles, I think you probably used SDL because it's a little less work to do the same amount of stuff, and it's retargetable. Like if you target SDL as if it were the platform, then you have something that works pretty much on all, like on Windows, Mac, and Linux, pretty much. I think it's just a little easier. The only thing is when you start doing lots of advanced stuff, like if you're messing with the the clipboard and you're messing with the threads and you're doing all the tons of different things with the platform, then I found that I prefer to do it through the actual API on Windows. All right, I'm going to get to it. So, one thing I was thinking about, let me come over here and move over to the colors project. Oops. Oh, I can't Emacs this project. What am I doing? That's all muscle memory. Now I came here so I could make sure that it's still building and run it. Okay, so last time we got the sort of geometry at these points. I worked on that. And I did some thinking, because the next thing I want to do is make sure that you don't start getting situations where lots of these lines, oh, what is it doing? There, and then, yeah. So the length of those lines shrinks too fast, and eventually they start colliding, and it starts to become hard to do all these different things in one place. I was thinking about this problem a little bit, and there's basically two different things that have to be done in very different orders. Building the polygon has to wind around the skeleton of the tree, either one way or the other way, but it has to go around in a circle, as in it has to do depth first, and it has to go left to right every time, or it has to go right to left every time. Because if it does the middle first, then your polygon's lines cross. Whereas when I'm doing things like generating the length of lines on the skeleton and their angles and whether they hit each other and stuff, I kind of want to do breadth first. And there's just no easy way that I was able to come up with that would sort of cleverly combine them. So I decided what I should actually be doing is split this up into two phases, generating the skeleton and then adding the width afterwards. So I'm going to go and refactor it, I guess I should call it that. I don't know what else to call it. And just sort of split this tree generation into before with the skeleton generation, and then second stage add in the width. And then I think it'll be easier for me to control the skeleton from there and also get the width more tuned. Because I noticed the other thing I didn't like is if you look right here, even though the geometry is tuned the way I wanted to last time, I can't separately control the widths of these, and I can't really control the angle of these lines in the system, which is also pretty important. It's not all synced up. So yeah, I got the lines to not go skinny to fat just by accident, by randomly putting points down. Well, not randomly, but by my old method. But there's still a few other problems, and I think that'll be easier if I'm not also trying to generate the skeleton at the same time to correctly position these points even better. As you can see, it's like that skeleton line is not really parallel with the branch lines. I'm not sure if they're supposed to be perfectly parallel, but they don't even look like the same direction at all. They're pretty far off. Whereas this looks a little closer. Like this is what I would consider parallel, even though they're not, because these get skinnier. Anyway, that's enough discussing what I want to do. So I'm going to take a look at what we got to do it. The smooth scrolling feels slower now that it's okay, sorry, can't believe I haven't noticed that. It's weird. I can sit and stare at this all day, and if I am not using it to actually write code, I don't notice these little things, but there's a small problem with the smooth scrolling. At least there's one for me. But I'm going to deal with it because it's not too bad. Okay, so what I want is a separate function that does, yeah, it's so slow and sluggish now, it's weird. Like when I roll up, it goes really far and moves slow. It's different than how it used to be. Okay, so I want to do tree skeleton gen, and that's going to take an array of these things, which are going to be yeah, it's slower than it used to be. That's because the views used to be, since it was all fixed with, I measured height and like X and Y position of the view. It was measured by, how the grid of characters, and now it's measured by literal pixels, and I haven't actually retuned the scrolling for that. Okay, so what I want in here, what I want in here is the position, and also up to 3 children. The children grow up, so the parent is at the base and it grows upwards in this case. Up to 3 children at any given point. Let's see. Okay, that's all I can think of that I need right now. I might add, like thickness and stuff in there when it becomes time to do the tree gen from that. Tree skeleton. Okay. Oops, skipped one. Alright, so a lot of this is going to be very similar. The only difference is it's not stack based. If it's breadth first, it's a queue. And so that means you maybe need more than 16 at a time. Because 16 is how many layers deep you go in a stack, which we never actually were going that far because we set the limit to be lower than that, more like 7 layers at a time. But if you have to go across a queue, you could have as many as, 3 to the however many layers you go. So if I say 3 to the 7, yeah, that's more like 2,000 that could possibly fit at any particular time into the queue. It's a lot. Well, do I want to call it a branch point? At each point in the stack. What does the branch point involve again? It's got it's got a position. Taking notes while I'm talking. It's not really working. It's got a position. Jason of the B. Thank you. Yeah, I think the proportional font is pretty cool. A lot more text fits on like one line at a time, for one thing, and it's still just as readable. So that's a big plus. Yeah, as far as I'm concerned. The only slight downside is with proportional, you get sometimes the weirdness where when you move up and down, you don't totally know exactly where you're going to land. But if you're doing a lot of moving up and down, that's normally not the fastest way to navigate. You're not normally trying to be super speedy there anyway. And it's not always terrible. It's normally fine anyway. So anyways, these branch points, they have a position. Yeah, all this information is just about how to generate the skeleton, or how the thickness should be sort of packed in there at the same time. So I'm just going to use branch point and ignore old stuff, and maybe over time it'll either split into 2 separate things and sort of, well, we'll work it out. So if I say that 3 to the 5 is the max, then that's, well, let's do 3 to the 6. Oops. 3 to the 6. 729. Okay. And then for Q, it's going to be, there's got to be a write position and a read position. And all right. So the Q's first is this. Got the paste effect back. That was missing for a little while, but I finally got around to getting it back in there. I quite like it when I see it. I really don't like that fact that cursors get that wide on tabs. I have to. I'm ignoring that because I'm going to do more with the white space anyway. I'm not sure the cursor is going to stay fat. Jason of the B asks, will 4coder be available on Linux, Mac OS with the last Alpha 2 or with the later version? And the answer is it will not be available yet in Alpha 2. I'm hoping to get to that. That's coming up, but it's still, I have to get to a point where I feel like 4coder actually does beat the alternatives, which is almost there now, before I'll port it, because I don't want to put the work into like making it available everywhere when it's not useful yet. But it's getting there. I'll port it as soon as I think it'll actually be a viable option for writing code. Okay, so that puts the branch point at the beginning of the queue. And then, oops, one too many. Yeah, I'm going to ignore the J stuff here. This is what I did for irregularity before, but that was all kind of a hack. So I'm going to take out all mentions of J. Branch count's just always going to be 3 again. Any other mentions of J? Nope, it's not finding any. Cool. Alright. Yeah, it'll probably, Jason is still asking about the 4coder thing, or at least talking about it. And I'll say, I don't know how soon it will be, because I don't know if I'll be able to keep working at my current pace for much longer, how much longer I can keep up my current pace. I don't know how it's going to fluctuate. But I'm going to take another crack at the parsing stuff that I have to finish. And when I come back from that, I'm going to be doing another phase of improvements to the UI and to the editing stuff, to finally add undo and, in editor compilation, those kinds of things that you actually need to make this really top notch. And once those are in there, that'll probably be Alpha 3, and then Alpha 4 would be, like, as soon as those are in there, I would divert my attention to making a version for Linux and Mac. That's my current plan anyway, just so you have a rough idea of how long it'll be before I get there. Okay, so now what I need to do is basically I want to see while the read position is not the right position. And then grab the branch point. q plus read position plus read position. Yeah, I did that way better. And then that's where, let's see, this down here is about making the polygon, shifting the point around a little bit from the skeleton's position. So I'm ignoring that. So basically it's just right, so the branch point's going to be a little different. Oops. The branch point's going to be a little different now because it's not actually about taking a point and generating from that point multiple times. It's about a future point to generate from. So I'm going to make a separate copy. I'll call this skeleton branch point. It needs at least a position, I know for sure, and it needs probably a step. See if I can do that. Mojo Bojo's asking about the open source state of 4coder, and the answer is I still think about whether or not I'm going to open source 4coder a lot. I don't know if it's a good idea for me to open source 4coder. I've definitely already decided to open source the code intelligence sort of base system. So anyone who wants to be able to make a similar thing would have the hardest part available, which is the code reading and manipulating. And you can do all sorts of other cool stuff with that, which is why I'm open sourcing it, because I don't want to do all of the things that you could do with it, and so I'm going to let other people do those things, hopefully. But I don't know if open sourcing 4coder would be good, at least not early on, because then if I open source it, it becomes harder for me to continue to develop it myself. I'd have to I'd have to find a new project to be, I don't know. I'm thinking about it, but I'm not enthusiastic about open sourcing it. At least not, right when I finish it. Alright, so I got the branch point. Now I'm going to grab the position. Alright, so let's see, grab the position. I'll call that P, because I called that P down there. And then that's already in the tree in my understanding of this. So I put a branch point on. When I pull it off, it should already be in the skeleton. So all I'm doing is adding new points to the skeleton and adding branch points for them. So what I want to do, actually, is I need this to have an idea of which vertex it comes from, and then if I do that, that means I don't need to store the position here. It might be faster if I do, though, so I'll keep that for now. Okay, so vert equals vertices plus, well, I do need to have the branch point first. The branch point's vert ID. That gives me the vertex. If I have to read it from the vertex pointer anyway, then it sort of doesn't matter. So I'm going to say that that's cleaner and easier for now. Krasinski is mentioning that there is a similar situation with the Sublime text editor, and the lead developer stopped working on it, and so now there's no way for bug fixes and expansions and stuff to happen. So to that, I would say, I think if you don't open source something, you should make, and it starts to grow a user base that relies on it, then you should take responsibility and make sure that there is that avenue. So that's something that I'll do if I think that it's being used a lot. I'll make sure that there's a way for the system to live on, possibly by open sourcing it or doing something else. I just don't know if open sourcing is actually the best way to make something live on. That's what I'm actually questioning. Yeah, so what I do at each of these points is I say that the vert children I equals, here's where I need a K for writing into vertices, and then I say that it equals K, and then at that location I do vertices K dot position equals P. Yep. Then I just need a vec2 called new P that stores that position. And I can plus this. Yeah, I gotta say, I really, really like the proportional fonts. The more that I look at it and the more that I write code in it, it's definitely grown on me. I don't know what to say about it in defense of some of the problems people say that it has, because they're not totally wrong, but it's like it's almost worth it to have a little bit. Zephod, I'm not using 4coder to develop 4coder. I am using 4coder though. I'll be using 4coder to develop 4coder soon, but right now I'm just using it to I'm using it to develop a tree thing. You'll see the tree thing in a minute when I finish redoing all this. Okay, so the new position. How do I calculate a new position? How did I do it back here? The new position is it's a little bit different than this, but it's something like, I look at the branch count and I use that to determine based on theta and yeah, because the branch point has a theta and it has a step. So what I'll do is I'll say the theta we don't need to store in the branch point. because that is just a matter of starting like this now, theta. Oh, we do need to store it in the branch point, but we don't need to store. Okay, so let's store in here theta. And right here is theta. And minus params dot d theta. Okay. Yeah, Zafad, sorry if it's not easy to follow. I'm sort of deep in the middle of moving stuff around that I sort of worked out in my head ahead of time, and I'm not exactly explaining all of it. Basically, if you saw the old stuff. Alright, gotcha. Okay, let's see. The new position has to be the old position plus polar to Cartesian of the theta and theta first. Why does it scroll so big? That's kind of nasty. Yeah, theta and the step size. Okay. So at that point, I take a p plus polar to Cartesian theta bp step. Yep, and then what I need to do is that theta plus equals params dot d theta. What I want to do right here is the amount of subtraction is actually more like branch count minus 1 times d theta times 0.5. Okay, so that's going to generate more vertices, and then I need to put another branch point on for each one of those as well. So that's where I go at each point. Q right position plus plus equals BP. And then, oh, you know what? I have different types of branch positions now, so I actually need a different function anyway. Skeleton branch point. Alright, so I need ID, step, and theta. And then we have ID, step, and theta. Okay. That's cool. And a lot simpler than this line that was getting pretty out of hand. So 0 is the ID initially, step, and 270. And but I need to do this as well. Okay, so somewhere in here, all right, it's in the params base. Okay, so starts at the bottom, right? Puts the first vertex in the tree is the base, and it puts the position there. Then it puts on the queue of things to process that it wants to do one. Yeah, it wants to do ID 0, which is good, and because that's where the first vertex went, with a size of step and moving upward is okay. And then it takes that off the queue. It decides how many branches to make, and it determines the starting theta. So it takes the central theta, 270, subtracts basically to the starting point, so it moves to the left a little bit. If there are 3 branches, it moves one whole theta to the left. And then goes across the branches. At each point in that loop, it makes a new vertex, adds that vertex to, adds the ID. Okay, so not children. No, children I is correct. What is K is the ID of the vertex. And then you write the vertex in right there. And, okay, SVP. At this point, it says it wants to, okay, I want to do plus plus later. Pattern is actually always put the K there and then do the plus plus afterwards. That's the pattern. And then we'll do step times step decay. So this will be back more like the old one had that pattern, that math, and then the theta is, let me move this after that, plus K, theta. Okay, so that's odd. Okay. Okay, back to the code. So, let's see. My dog's barking outside and it's distracting me. There's that, put the theta in, plus plus K. Right, so the only thing I have to do is make sure that I'm picking the correct branch count at any given time. And the way to do that is basically well, I guess I have to keep track of the depth manually now. So the branch point actually needs to know its depth. And it starts at a depth of 0, I guess. Right, the first one is 0. Each subsequent one just takes that depth and adds 1. And then what the branch count is basically if the depth is 0, then the branch count equals 1. If the depth is, okay, how does this work? When I said, to do one iteration, for example, that would just do 1. So if it's, I think it's going to be if it's less than params dot levels. Jumbla asks, what are you making? I'm working on a sort of tree generation algorithm. So I'll run it hopefully in a minute and you'll see, but it makes a, oops, don't want those. It makes a sort of tree shape, and it's not totally a polygon yet, but I'm trying to make it so that the branches don't overlap and it adds thickness to the tree and stuff. And then I'm going to try to break it up into triangles so you can render it solidly and make a tree generator so you can sort of make nice looking trees of different kinds. Bebob619 asks, is this C or C++? I'm using a C++ compiler, and I have operator overloading and a few other things. But for the most part, it's all structs and functions and pointers and nothing else. So very C-like in some ways. Okay. It's less than that. That's 3. Else branch cannot equal 0. Okay. Why what? Bebob asks why. Why is that what I do? Volbus, I plan to do 3D someday. I didn't want to do 3D for this because I'm not too experienced with 3D basics, like just rendering in 3D. I know how it works in theory, but I've never really done it. And I wanted to pick something that I could do decently well. That was a little bit difficult, which 2D is difficult enough for me to test 4coder. Bebob, why half C asks why half C and half C++. Because C by itself doesn't have operator overloading and sort of other useful features, function overloading. Depending on what version of C, declare anywhere. Some things like this are missing from C, so I wouldn't want to use that, just straight C. But I don't really like to use the other parts of C++. I used to use like classes and polymorphic, virtual functions and stuff, but I find I can just handle my projects better if I don't. It's easier to debug. It's easier to do everything. And yeah, it is actually in C++. It's just a C style of C++. I use many of the things that I use were available in C. Okay, so let's see. That seems like it's done to me. So I'm gonna pop over here. Ooh, the scrolling is a nightmare. I have to fix that. Let's see. Yeah, so I need right here my array of skeleton points. Woo, the scrolling is terrible. Tree skeleton vert. Part get array. Let's hit the V. There we go. I want tree skeleton vert and init skeleton Maybe below the scrolling works fine and it looks kind of okayish, but it's too slow and sluggish. Like when I try to move somewhere, it lurches very far and moves there too slowly. It used to be tighter so that you wouldn't sit around waiting for scrolling and you could get what you wanted more precisely. And I screwed it up a little bit when I reworked everything to a more loose system recently for the proportional fonts. Okay, so basically all of this is just not correct right now. So I'm going to hide it. And yeah, this is Windows 7. I use Windows 7, I just have the arrow theme turned off because things just run way faster when that's off. Yeah, I can't remember what it's called. It's like Windows Basic theme, and when you turn it off, when you turn it off, you just get like none of the like weird like alpha stuff happens. I don't know. Windows 7 looks weird to me. Like it doesn't even. This looks. I prefer the look of this anyway, but it was also much faster when I first switch to it. Okay, so I grab the memory for the skeleton, and then I want to generate the skeleton. Oh, I need to write to vertex count out when I'm done. Okay. So, let's see, I need the skeleton, memory, init skeleton count, and the params. Where are my params? I think it's in bars params. Okay, so that should generate me a tree. Okay, so that should generate a skeleton. Now, I want to draw it, but the MyGL polygon isn't actually going to work, so I'm just going to make a special skeleton rendering thing. Skeleton count. Grab my colors and move them up. Brown. Oops. Silver. Oops. There we go. The graphics library, let me show you, is just OpenGL. MyGL is my name for functions that I write that interface to OpenGL in this project. Oop. There we go, MyGL. This is where I want to put skeleton, and this needs the tree skeleton vertices, and call that count and color. Yeah, I just, whenever I write a function that's doing OpenGL, it's MyGL. It's not really a library. I did use, basic, I used like, what is it, glue GLEW to set up OpenGL. That was the only thing I used, other than the operating system. Okay, so to render this, you kind of need a stack. You kind of want to do a depth first sort of thing. So, yeah, so I need a stack of, let's see, maximal depth. You said 16 is always enough. And at the beginning of that stack, I'll put a 0 for the first ID of a vertex, and then we'll just do while top is still greater than 0. And I want to get the current ID equals stack plus top minus 1. So I don't think the stack can just be IDs, so it's going to be like a skeleton draw point ID child finished. Yeah, that should be what I need. So I have to keep track of also which children I've drawn so far. Okay. Yeah, see, that mark is a little messed up. The outline isn't quite right. That bugs me. I took a note of it earlier, but I have to mention it because it bugs me so much. Okay. And let's see. 0, -1. Instead of last child, it'll be next child. Skeleton draw point. Huber Caleb, I can understand why that might be true. I'm really bothered by the cursor's behavior, especially in this case right here. This seems like horrible, but I don't think whitespace is going to keep working this way. But I'm getting more and more used to this, and I'm not sure that I'll continue to love monospace more. I am using Arial, which is a little weird. I could use a better font. I just haven't bothered to download one because I'm extremely lazy. But I'm going to look for a better font than Arial just because a few things are too thin. Like these shouldn't be so thin, I think, in a programmer's font. And the parentheses. It was Matthew Van de Vander was the one who pointed out to me that a lot of people have that problem, that just these are all not quite right, not quite what you would want not in a proportional font. Okay, so all right, so I got the point that I need to draw, and then the question is just let's look at the next child, or we'll call it child equals next. Well, I don't really need to cache them like that. What I need to do is ID, what if I need to get the vertex. That's what I need to do. Tree skeleton vert equals vertices plus ID. Children. We can guarantee that none of the indices will be 0 if they've been used. So that's good. And that means I can go like this, next child. If that is a non-zero, then you're going to want to plus that, and then draw the line. So GL vertex 2F vertices. No, it's vert. Yeah, so what I have to do is at this point I grab 2 points and I do them both. Vertex 2F vert position.x vert position.y, and then I draw that to the child's that I can cache. It will make sense. And I grab a copy of that. Child vert. We'll call that child vert. Position x. Copy. Position y. All right. Oh, I need to do, of course, the GL begin, GL lines, GL end, NZ, GL lines. Miblo asks, any sweet features of 4coder we haven't seen yet that you'd like to show off? There is. The reason I haven't shown it off is because I'm not totally sure that it's stable yet. Let's see, I'm 1 hour in. I've almost finished this function, so I'm going to say, let's save all of my work and give it a shot. So I'm still working on, took a day to prettify all the fonts and allowed them to be, variable. But I've also worked on this. This is the theme library. So it's not totally done yet. But basically I haven't finished everything because this thing on top is the active theme. And then these are other themes that I've hard-coded in. So, for example, there's 4coder mono, and I don't know if I switch. I know I can switch to this as long as there's not a file up, but I haven't actually tested that the file corrects itself when I do this. So yeah, I just switched it to the monospace version of my theme. It didn't update right away, or it didn't look like it updated right away, but that wasn't lag. That's just that's a problem with it it doesn't draw every frame, and I didn't tell it to draw that frame. So, because I haven't like I said, I haven't finished this, so it doesn't know that when I click these things, it should update. There's the Handmade Hero theme. I'm not sure that I got all these colors done yet. It doesn't quite look right, but I tried to plug in the Handmade Hero colors. It looks a little off to me. You guys can tell me what you think, but I think it's a little off. And then there's Keeper Caleb asks if you can record multiple macros and save the macros for later use. Not yet. Macros are another one of those usability features. I don't normally mention them because I don't find them fun, like, to think about. I haven't really got a plan for them yet. But I haven't forgotten that I got to do macros, and that'll be a part of that push where I finish up all the usability things. All right, so the other themes, let me go through them real quick. Chronal Dragons asked about the STB theme. It's not done yet, but the STB theme, in honor of Sean Barrett and because I used his library a little bit in the 4coder, is all black on white because that's how he always sets his up. And yes, it should have a different font. I just haven't gotten around to grabbing the font files that I need to include in the project and to load in. Right now I'm only loading in Liberation Mono and Arial, and fonts aren't flexible yet. The only ones that you can load in are the preset ones. So I want to work a little more on fonts, but I'll probably cram Courier New in just to make that correct. And like I want to get these colors right because I haven't even checked this one. And then there's the Wolverine theme. That's not right. The Wolverine theme must not be done. This is the Twilight theme, just in Arial. The Wolverine theme looks different. And here's the Twilight theme, what that's supposed to look like. That's Twilight. Yeah, the Handmade Hero one. Like I said, I don't know if these colors are right. I tried to get these right just before I started streaming, and doesn't totally look right to me, but I'm not sure. Maybe it looks right to everyone else. It's supposed to be the Casey theme for sure. So you guys can comment, tell me if you think that is right or not. It doesn't seem very right. All right, so that's one thing I've been working on, is the theme library. Now, if you click on this top one, like I said, I want to make this one look different. Yeah, it seems like the background is too bright for sure. I went and looked, and it said it was gray, like, yeah, the comments are gray 50. I don't know if that's right either. I have to go and look again. Yeah, Keeper Caleb, I went and looked, like I looked up like Goldenrod 3 and those things in the Emacs list, and I did not apparently get it quite right. So I'm gonna keep working on this. This is supposed to be the Handmade Hero theme, and let's see if I go back to, let me plug in one of these Arial ones. All right, so there's 4coder and Arial. If I click on this top one, that takes me to the color picker. And the new features here are, there's this color palette, which isn't done, but basically right here is all the colors used in the current theme, and then the rest of the space is going to be used for manually chosen colors in your own color palette. And if I find myself in a situation where there's not enough space, there's now a scroll bar, so you can move around and you can see the color palette automatically adjusting and all sorts of cool stuff. So that's all the new stuff. There isn't anything else. There is there's not really any other new stuff. D7 Samurai asks, you might have answered this before, but how are you doing the GUI, mouse interaction, drag mouse over, etc., custom system, or a library? It's all basically custom. I mean, there's no library. I'm trying to think of the best way to put it. Like, it's not even really, I can't even say that it's immediate mode versus retained mode or anything like that, because that sort of implies that it's like an API, whereas I really just sort of sat down and coded the simplest minimal thing that got that stuff on the screen, because the I mean, there's only like the scroll bar is reusable, and uh, some of the like the text fields are reusable. The basic slider is reusable. So I guess there's a little bit of reusable stuff in there that I sort of am pulling out, but that's the only place where it's even used yet. So it's not even really anything but just like hand coded. Okay, so I'll explain the system a little bit. So let me look at this slider. It's at 0C, 0C, 0C to start with. Okay, so basically, the whole thing is just a matter of the main system has uh, an idea of three things. And the hard part is the whole system, since this, like, there's not usually animation on your screen. Once in a while, like, if it's scrolling, it has to update every frame. But I wanted it to not draw every frame if it was just the same thing every time. So it only, yes, Keeper Caleb, the GUI is very compression oriented. In fact, I literally one day looked at the code and went, I got to compress this because I had the same, 20 lines written 6 times, and I just pulled that out. And then after that, I thought to myself, okay, this is all compression oriented, and I went at it, and I was able to get a lot more done once I picked up that mindset. Oh, there is one more feature that I forgot to show you. Say you're sitting here, and someday there's a lot more colors over here, and you're like, you see something weird, like maybe you've got this on, and you see these R's, and you're supposed to be in Nix mode, so the R's aren't supposed to like be in your text, and you see an R, and you're like, why do I have a /R in there? You can click on it, and it highlights why that thing is colored that way. It highlights the color in the color theme that causes that. So, for example, I can click on that, and it highlights the orange. I can click on this, and now it's highlighting the comment, which is blue, and the white space highlight because I'm on a white space character. I can click on that, it shows me the green. If I had a junk token, which I don't in here, but if I had a junk token, you can see that gets highlighted. If I use this, it highlights the highlighter, and so on. Anyway, oops. Okay, so about the sliders, basically it keeps track of what you're hovering on. So once per frame, it runs through all of these. These are all function calls in a sort of immediate mode style where I call functions. I don't store data anywhere about what's supposed to happen. The data is like hard coded in, for now at least. And what I do is I loop through all of them. One of these can be activated. So whichever one is activated has the long form thing underneath it. And then whatever sort of widget, I guess you could call it, that you hover over is considered hovered. If you start clicking on it, right, then it's considered hot, which is not, it doesn't totally match Casey's naming scheme. Because I remembered his names and I just used them, but I wasn't really following his scheme at all from his I'm GUI video. But hot means like that you're currently holding the mouse down since you pressed it and you're still holding down. And then when you release, it either becomes active if it's activatable, like that's activatable, these can be activated. Once something's activated, it's not only in use, but it's like it's selected, right? It's the one that's up. So like the slider, if I click on it, I'll take this as an example. There's a sort of a box that's the clickable box. If I'm hovering over it, you can't see anything in that one because it doesn't do anything on hover. But then when you click, it becomes hot, and then as long as I'm holding it down, it stays hot, and it just moves the slider to the X position with clamping, of course. And then when I release, it nothing happens. It just stays where it was. So that goes right there. And then I store a little bit of state that's extra about which one should be active, which of these should be active, and which of these should be active at any given time. So like this over here, when you release, it doesn't become active. If it did, it would close this, right? Because it would like affect the activity state of these things. But this is not activatable, so it doesn't affect these activatable things. If that makes sense. I don't know if it makes any sense. I don't know if I did a good job of explaining that. I don't know. Okay, so D7 Samurai is asking if it's like a list of elements containing their positions and then I adjust their positions. No, that's not it at all. There's no list of positions. I just call I have a list of like I have a series of function calls. Each one like tells it the background color, the foreground color, the text, and a pointer to the color that it's supposed to edit. And that's all I pass it, and I pass it a struct, and that struct has like information about where to lay this thing out, and then after it puts one thing in, it advances the Y position down so that the next thing is one stop down. So I don't think about the layout at all. The way that it automatically lays itself out is that like when I'm clicked here, all of these didn't have this extra thing happen, so the Y didn't step farther. Right, their positions weren't stored though. It was sort of it's determined every frame where their position is as it passes through the function calls, and the thing that determines them is sort of the layout engine, which isn't really an engine. It's just a Y variable that you add to every time you use it, or X in the case of this row of buttons. But I mostly just worked on this because I wanted to get a handle on how I was going to do UI, and a lot of it isn't reusable, but the few things that are reusable will be the most important thing, because I'm going to have other UIs that will be very similar to this, and over time I'll build up a more concrete idea of the reusable components of this, and it'll become probably a sort of IMGUI library over time, is my expectation of that situation. And it's a little bit messy. I can't totally describe it just because I don't, like, some of it's a bit of a mess. So it doesn't actually make any sense. Some of it's pretty solid, some of it's a mess. Still in a fluxy sort of state. Okay, I'm going to look at what it's going to take to generate this tree. Yeah, there is a check against the mouse coordinate and the box. It's just the box is recomputed. The box isn't stored. The box is computed by the layout engine every frame. That's the point. Or at least, yeah, it is computed every frame, which is a term I use lightly, but because there's kind of frames and there's kind of not, depending on what thing you're asking about. Forget that. That's whatever. The frames thing. Anyway, let me take a look at this, see if I can get a handle of where I left before I started showing off the color picker stuff. Oh right, I was just about to see if it works. And that's sort of what I expected. What do we have? Some misspellings. Oh yeah, D7 Samurai. The window width and height is totally stored. That's the panel layout system. That's at a totally different level. Like, it's advanced to the point now where the way the panel layout, it's just whenever you call the function that says, hey, this panel, you need to update you need to like receive input and update your state. You pass in the input and you pass in the rectangle of where this thing is, right? Where this panel is right now on the screen. And so the outer level is just keeps track of where the panels are, and then when you pass that rectangle in, that's how it like figures out where on the screen it is. All right. Valbus, valuelibus, something like this. I don't know. Asks, so what C, C++ are you using? GCC or Visual Studio C compiler? I'm using the Visual Studio compiler. And DPC asks if I'll be open sourcing it again. I've discussed this a bunch of times, so I'm just gonna say it quickly. I don't know. Maybe if I think that not right when I like him when it's good and solid. I'm definitely not gonna open source it when I first finish it. But I want to do whatever's best to keep it viable for its user base as long as possible. So if that's open sourcing it, it's open sourcing it. If it's something else, it's something else. I don't know what it'll be yet. Tree skeleton vert. Miblo asks what flavor of C++, and that is a C style of C++ where I use function overloading, operator overloading, declare anywhere. That's about it. I do use a lot of handmade sort of vtables. If you're asking like where am I on the spectrum in relation to Casey and everybody else, I'm pretty close to Casey right now. I think I do vtables a little more often than him, but that might just be the nature of my project. Like it's a lot easier to do certain things with vtables. Yeah, I figured you were probably Miblo. I figured you were probably talking to him, but I wanted to answer your question in case that was his question anyway. So that's what that was. All right. Tree parameters. Oh, parameters. Oh yeah, I keep forgetting you have the bot. You can give me those. Array count? I don't have array count? Okay. Weird. Param, line 121. Params. What else? Tree parameters. Base is not a member of tree parameters. Line 80. Oops. Line 80. Base is totally a member of tree parameters. What are you talking about? Alright. Yes, handmade C++. That is a good name for it. Control G. Although, wouldn't handmade C++ actually require that we make our own compiler? Hero C++. Okay, there we go. Control G, initial step. Are you still telling me? Okay, there's no way to go from skeleton branch point to branch point. Gotcha. Skeleton branch point. 126. That should be a skeleton branch point. Skeletong, huh? Skeletong. Not a thing in my code base. There we go. It fits on one screen now. 142. Step. Step is not a member of what? Params? You're right. We've been over this before. My bad. But it is a member of branch point. Or a skeleton branch point. 116. Ooh, I never used QWrap. That's not good news. I have to use that. Specifically, I have to use that right here. Whenever I write to that position, equals right position modulo QWrap. And similarly, read position has to do the same thing. QWrap. And we also want to assert, after having done that, that right position is not equal that's actually never even going to be possible for me to assert because no, I can assert that. I think I can assert that because it shouldn't actually execute this part of the loop. It shouldn't execute this for loop on the last step where it's going to end. It reads one thing and it doesn't write anything out. And it's that reading forward that makes them equal, not the writing forward. It's not equal position. Okay, cool. App color. Nasty, sluggy scrolling. Kind of tough to deal with. Okay, I was looking at it's pretty hard to hit that I. It's interesting. You don't want anything to be quite too thin in your font if you can avoid it. Like, having variability doesn't necessarily mean everything has to be that thin. I mean, a thin I is kind of going to happen, same with L. But it's a little bit problematic just because it's harder to click it if you ever want to. Anyway, I was supposed to be doing something else. That is a problem with this, is I'm always thinking about two things at once. But I can focus. GLN somewhere I gave it a parameter, probably in the place where I just wrote it. Yeah, that makes sense. I almost always do that. Skeletong, there's more Skeletong. Line 285, probably in this file though, since that seems to be where we're looking now. There it is. Alright, so close parenthesis before semicolon, line 304. Oh, I didn't finish calling my function. There you go. Have another parameter. I don't think I actually need as much memory for that, but I'll grab it anyway. And then I might as well just start with the debugger. I'm gonna not mess with it. We're gonna just start with the debugger. Alright, something's not working. Pause. Oh, I'm never popping anything off this stack. Or pushing anything onto it. Yes, I didn't finish this. I had a feeling it was unfinished, but I just didn't see it. Okay, so line 76. Oops, wrong key command. There we go. I just noticed something. 1 second. Alright, cool. So, anyway, the little problem, I don't really need this extra layer. That's not actually helpful. The thing I gotta do, see, pop something off the stack. Okay, maybe we don't want to, right. And then we don't pop, we read something off the stack. We look at the child, then we advance to the next child. What we want to do is, first of all, if next child is greater than or equal to 3, then we're done. So done. We'll make that a bool, because we have to do 2 different cases where that might become a 1. Other cases if there wasn't that far along, and that's where you wouldn't have the special case that if I had an extra child on every single vertex and just always made the last one 0, but that's not really what I want to do. Alright, and then if I'm done, then I want to you would want to decrease the top by 1, right? And then in here, whenever you push something, or whenever you draw one of these things, you push that onto the stack. Stack top plus plus equals this child, and it's at 0. Miblo, I would offer a quip or a wit response, but I have to do some research first and figure out what you're talking about, and then I'll get back to you on that. Okay, so it's still not going. What? Oh, I didn't rebuild it. Gotcha. Aha! It's running and showing me nothing. Brilliant. Let me pause you right there and just see. I'm curious to see how many times we output a pair of things and what that pair of things is. Never. Never do we output anything. Okay. So what's actually happening here? Grab the skeleton point. Grab the skeleton vertex. It's got a position that looks right, and children that are all 0. Huh? Okay, so that's a problem with the generation function. Yes, you. What are you not? You're not running that? What do you mean you're not running that? Shouldn't you? Oh, we're not moving. Okay. So, let's see. Ooh, K got incremented twice. That can't be right. Okay, so 121 needs to lose the plus plus. Not this program. Yes, this program. 1 plus plus. There we go. Let's rebuild that. Run this. Okay, so K is 1. We grab that. We take one branch. Theta, which is 270. D theta is 45, but it's going to be multiplied by 0, so we'll just get 270, yes. polar to Cartesian is just basically that step forward in that direction, add it to that, new P, that looks right. So K1 is your child, and then XY gets stored, stored at that vertex position, sure. And then you write this new guy into the queue. This new guy has decayed step amount, has that same theta, as it turns out, and another is deeper. Good. Read position is 2. Where's the read position right now? 1. Alright, cool. So they're not equal. And then that steps forward, but it's meaningless because that's the end of the loop. Read position moves up to 2. And this guy is going to branch 3 times. So his theta is 270 minus d theta, right? So that should be 225. Good. And then it moves to the left and up more. Okay, this is looking correct. I'm going to leave that breakpoint in and check it off. Oop. Oop. We got a bogus child vertex in here. Okay, we got bogus child index. Children 14, 15, 16, next child. Oh, shoot, okay. I did not do the control flow quite right there. Okay, so if you hit the third one, you're done. If just throw all this into an else, I guess. What is going on down there? That was weird. That would be kind of cool. 1 second. Oops, sorry if I bumped the mic. Seems like I did. Felt like I did. It's back. Doesn't have width again. So those are irrelevant. But it looks like the other thing. Whoa! Ugh. Made me jump. Shoot. It did run out of memory in the queue. Alright, so it's as I suspected. It was maybe not quite enough memory. Glad I put the assert in. I suspect that I just need 1 more, but I might need a whole times 3 more. So we'll try this first, and if that's, whoops, and if that's not enough, then we'll recompute it. There, yeah. So just probably needed 1 more because it's like, yeah, 3 to the what did I do? 6 is 729, but you know, there's still 1 in there. Once the 729 are in there, there's still 1 processing. So, you know, you end up with needing 1 extra spot, sort of thing. But that's good. It's good and done. And now I can. That's the it's the step decay. And here's my angle. Gotcha. I kind of like some of the looks you get around here. And that one's kind of cool. But too regular for sure. Gonna have to make it better. There's all sorts of things going to the regularity that I started noticing, like all the angles are the same. The lengths are the same. All these things have to be able to vary in different ways. And it's always straight lines. It needs to be able to do a bunch of 1s in a row to kind of curve around. So anyway, we now are doing a proper skeleton rather than looping around. Let's see if I can revive the tree gen now. Tree gen is going to be totally different. tree gen is going to be totally different. I'm just going to scrap it. It's going to be so different. Which is sad because it was a good amount of work, but most of that work lives on up here now. Okay, so to generate these, what I need is I have vertices. I want the out. I've got the parameters, but I also need to tell it that it's using what skeleton it's using, basically. So, tree skeleton skeleton count. Okay. Okay. Am I asserting vertex count? That's not really useful. I want to assert that there's at least enough vertices for there's no point in asserting that right now. I have to do the math, and it's going to get more and more irregular, so I can't know for sure how many I need. I'll just hope that it's the right number. I could assert that K, yeah, that right here, K is always less than vertex count. That would do it. Okay. So now, to generate the tree thing, now I'm gonna do a stack-based or depth first sort of thing. Skeleton draw point. All right, so basically this is gone. This is gone. I'm going to keep this because it might not be gone. Anyway, tree gen. We need to make a struct up here of thickness point, which is the ID against the skeleton, the next child, and then we need a stack. 16 is always enough. Top is 0. Top plus equals 0, 0. Okay. That might not be enough forever because I'm probably going to store more in this one. So what I'm actually going to do is thickness point 0. Thickness point TP ID result ID is ID. All right, so yep, while top is greater than 0, and then at the end we're going to want to vertex count out equals k. I haven't even made k yet though. So we need a k. Yeah, and then next child is actually going to be, that can be 0. And then what happens is every time, it's like before, every time we come through here, we're going to visit a point, we generate that point into the vertices, and then we push its next child onto the stack. And we even generate a point when we're going to pop it off the stack. Okay, so thickness point TP equals stack plus top minus 1 if, yeah, what we want is a sort of a done equals 0 if TP next child equals 3, done equals, whoops, let's keep you right there. Gotta get that auto type a little better. 1 else, let's see, so if in this case you want to look at that child index, so that's actually, yeah. So then it's skeleton tree skeleton vert equals skeleton plus TPID vert children TP next child, which is then going to be incremented. If child and otherwise equals 0. There it goes. Okay. Ruby 404, what language is this? It's C++. Okay, so okay, let's see. So we have a child. We've determined we've got a child, and then what we want to do is push onto the stack a thickness point for that child, which is basically just that. And that's all we have to do. If done, Zangent. You like the name? You like the name 4coder? Uh, I can definitely. What's the sentence I'm trying to say? I'm saying the wrong words, I think. Uh, I appreciate that. I guess what I'm trying to say. 4coder. I'm never sure if I like the name or not, but sometimes I do. Uh, yeah, I do watch Handmade Hero. Sometimes I'm there all the time. Sometimes I miss a lot, but I do watch. WatchPeopleCode.com. I don't know why I don't know anything about that site, so I don't know why it's up there. Is it just like grabbing things from Stream that are programming related? Is that how that works? Decrease the top. I remember one pre-stream where Casey mentioned 4coder, but I don't remember any on stream or other cases where he really talked about it. So no, I haven't posted on the subreddit either. It's very interesting. I'll have to look into that. I'd be interested to know what you remember about Casey saying, because there were definitely some times I missed episodes, so he might have mentioned it in an episode that I didn't actually see. I miss probably one or two a week, and I don't usually go back to watch them unless I really care to learn whatever it was. Oh yeah. I remember him mentioning it in the main stream once. I remember him mentioning that. It was the same time that he had talked to me for in a pre-stream. Anyway, what was I doing? There was one thing here. It was super important. Right, I have to write out the vertex. That was the whole thing I was saying before. And I'll be lazy for now, and just ignore the fact that I might have to wiggle it around to give it width. Plus equals vert position. Right. Seems good. Seems good. Alright. Tree Skeletong. Skeletong or Skeletonk? Wait, that's Skeletalkin. I do not like Skeletalkin. There we go. Give it a run. Okay, no idea if it's working because I'm not calling it. I can help you find it, Miblo. I suspect I remember which one it is, because I was super excited. So I can go track it down. And I'll let you know where it is to make your life easier. Miblo's offering to annotate the 4coder mention. That's what I'm talking about right now. Man, we're almost out of time. I'm almost up to 2 hours already, which is what I normally do. We're almost just barely back to where I started, and not even. But, oh well, so that's what you get sometimes. Silver. Regen. Right, so now I need to grab all of these. Oops. No, I do want that. What I don't want is, yeah, okay, there we go. Okay. Um, yeah, Zanjin is just commenting on my comment at the bottom there. Every single one of my files, except for some reason TreeGen doesn't have it, but almost all my files have a top and a bottom, so I can go like that. Yeah, this one doesn't have them. See that super fat thing? I think that's a null terminator. I think that is the width of null. Yeah, it is super silly when you're thinking about comments that like in the normal way, but I started doing it when I wanted to, when I used comments for navigation, because that's what I normally do. Like until I'm, unless I'm commenting with notes, like a lot of my comments will be like, oh, here's where this thing is and that. So in a larger file, it'll be like, things that I can search to get there quickly. And top and bottom are my defaults to always have them. But it looks super silly when you're just thinking about like what the code says it does. But hey, that's what a lot of comments look like anyway. Yeah, null is really fat. I don't know why null is so much fatter than like space. Null is like almost the same width as tab, and tab is actually just 4 spaces, because tab by itself was, well, it was about the width of null. Maybe that's like a default width that things take on when they're not supposed to be rendered as characters, and space is somehow not included in that list of things. I don't know. Anyway, to put a bow on this one, we need to get the skeleton and the skeleton count in here. And then I need to, whoa. Okay, that's just a matter of my white space being all messed up. There we go. Yeah, okay. My GL skeleton. No, it's my GL polygon. It's basically this code right here, actually. That seems correct. All right, debugger, your turn. What is going on here? Break. Vertices k plus plus. There's a lot of vertices. If child done equals 0, that might do it. 165. Yeah, that would do it, because then it never pops anything. Well, I'm not sure if that would do it. We'll see. Okay. Actually, I have to rebuild it if I'm going to find out if that works. Infinite loop. Alright, what's the deal now? Done equals 1. I put done on the wrong spot, so now top is just this big thing and it's never getting decremented. 167. Okay. No, wrong one. There it is. Oh shoot, I didn't use cut, I used delete. If, and I don't have undo yet. If done. I use home and end for home and end of a line. And I have my hand on that, like the arrows in the home end region a lot. I'm not like the super optimal thing where my hand doesn't ever have to move around. I move my hand a little too much. Okay, so if done, decrement the top counter. Okay. Let's just run this straight in the debugger. Hey, that's not quite right. But it looks interesting, huh? So what's the deal there? It's just not putting out the final. It should like, the reason that's happening is because like right there it didn't output this point before it output that point. Yeah, I could totally just add a keystroke, but this way I eliminate having a keystroke. You know, this way I can have keystrokes for other things, and top and bottom just go off of the control find system. The find system, which is control F in my key binding for 4coder anyway. Okay. Let's say that I look right here real quick. There it is. That needs to happen no matter what. Okay. Save it again. Build that. Run it. Haha! Alright, so I don't have width anymore. But all I have to do to get width now is wiggle the points again. And now I can generate the skeleton first, get the right shape, and then figure out the width. So, that I think is pretty good. It just means I don't get a pretty looking tree today. But I think I'm out of time, so I'm going to call it quits there. So I'll just hang out for a bit to see if anyone's got any questions. If you'd like to see anything or ask anything about 4coder or anything else. That slider's pretty lazy because the center goes past, like the whole thing goes past the edge of the rectangle because it's just based on the center. And I'm using the ends of the rectangle. Uh-oh. Oh, ah! What is that? Hold on, we're not done. I have to debug. It looks like the old points are still there, and they're just not being deleted, but they're in the same position. It's like there, now it all works. If I decrease, I don't see it go down, but then I move around, and like the old points stay where they were. Yeah, that's weird. Okay, let me look into that. Vertex count, skeleton count, skeleton count out. I always like a cool bug. That's true. Sucks when you just get the obvious bugs, the lame bugs, but that was unexpected. Very cool. That P right there looks stupid. It looks better when I've got my cursor on it, so I'll leave it there. Hmm. Let's see. Right there I've got params, same params, skeleton count. Very weird. The memory's all in the same position. It seems like maybe it's just the params is definitely changing. The only thing I know that isn't changing is the tree. Well, that's not true. No, that's true. I'm pretty sure it's the skeleton's not changing the count for some reason. Because for the other things to line up correctly in the number, that would have to be true, right? The number of points in the other thing depends on the number of points in this thing. So it's got to be the skeleton. It's being released by the temporary memory. So it's in the same location each time. So the only question is, why is it coming up with the same count every time? Okay, so what's this count there? 41. All right. Say I step it up to there. What's the count there? 365. Okay. And then finally, I step it down one. Doop. What's the count there? 122. Huh. So the count is lower. Oh, okay. Alright, so I just need to clear that memory to 0. Because it still thinks it has children that it doesn't have. And this thing here doesn't actually care about the count on skeleton at all, as it turns out. Because it only ever moves up through this thing by looking at children, so as long as the children are correct, it will be correct. Okay. Do I have standard library functions? I don't know. I do. Make it bigger, add more. Whoop, whoop. Okay, put that there, less. Okay, we're good. All right, so now back to what I was saying before. If anyone's got any questions, I'll take a minute. Otherwise, it's been good. Thanks for coming out. And checking out the stream. Also, be sure to catch Handmade Dev, which should be launching its Patreon tomorrow at handmade_dev on Twitter, if I remember correctly. All right. Well, doesn't look like there's any questions, so see you later, guys.